Greetings and salutations, Geonerds. This week we're going to look into Toowong Creek. Finally, yay! I've been working on this for nearly a month. Just kept finding things that just kept getting more and more interesting, and government stuff and environmental stuff and history stuff, and it was a lovely creek. I would strongly advise anyone to go and walk this creek, or walk bits of it at least. It's just such a pretty creek. Important part of Brisbane's history, certainly the lower end, Chinese market gardens. We'd all died of scurvy if it wasn't for those fellas feeding us green stuff. Anyway, here it comes, Toowong Creek, and you know what I'm going to say.
Let's rock.
Hey Geonerds, just firstly, I'd like to thank all the new subscribers to the channel. Subscribing really helps in the wild and weird world of YouTube. And if you want to get a ding every time I push out a new video, and I do quite a few of them, smash that little bell. So, let's get on with the video. Also, as I learn more about the colonial history of Brisbane, I feel I really need to say this. I begin today by acknowledging the Turrbal people, traditional custodians of the land in which we live today, and I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge that they got royally dicked by my ancestors. I take no pride in the knowledge of what was done to these people and recognise their pain. My ancestors came from Northern Ireland, a land not too unfamiliar with land theft, murder and genocide. It just seems a shame we seem to want to do it all again here. Well folks, here we have a map from 1889 of Brisbane. We're zooming down onto the Toowong area, and if you look on the bend there, you'll see the little creek in its original shape and form heading off into the suburbs, unmolested in those days, but as you'll see, that changed. This one's from 1936. I'll just put a ring around the railway station so you get some idea of where we are. There's the Regatta Hotel. But if you look down the corner there, you can see Toowong Creek winding its way right the way across the countryside. I'll draw the track bed in here, so the creek bed, sorry, so you can see where it goes. And it was still pretty much unmolested in those days, right the way through. No Western Freeway, of course. And yeah, it was a beautiful little creek. It ran across shale, so it was a lovely clean creek. It didn't have any garbage in it. And it was used a lot. Now down near the mouth of the creek, there was a few different structures. There it is there, and you can see there's a structure in the river and a structure going out into the river. And here it is 10 years later. In 1949, it's a little bit more of a structure there. There's the mouth of the creek there, and here it is a little later. It's a little wharf, and if we whiz past in the ferry now, which I did some time ago, you can see there's the mouth and there's the remains of that structure still sitting there in front of what is probably number 2 Sanford Street. But anyway, let's have a look at the old 1895 map, because it'll tell us something about what's going on down here. You can see the creek is still completely unmolested. Blocks on one side. The other side, where there's no blocks, is actually market gardens, as you'll see soon. And it goes all the way through. A few bridges there. There's Minskin Street, away it goes. And they stopped drawing it when it got there, but it does go past that, as we'll see certainly in the future. It's just a really nice little creek. That area under there now is where it says Eastern Grey, and this is the limits of salt water right there. That's the tidal limit as mapped in 1911. And here's an image of a lady in a canoe on that river right there, and behind her is the Chinese market garden. So yeah, it's a very interesting. This is from about the late 1800s, so there was a market garden there. Here we have just the modern map of the area. You can see the creek marked there. It's changed quite substantially. As you can see, the park, it's all been modified down in Parent Park. and of course you've got the freeway and all the construction that went with that. And this is a T-Rocks video, so of course we've got to have a look at the rocks. Our old friend the bunyiphyllite is in purple, green is gravel, there's yellow gravel as well, but this is pretty much all bunyiphyllite. And if you look, there are two shades of purple there. The darker purple is the bunyiphyllite. The light purple in the top of the screen and near the freeway is actually Brisbane schist. This is the metamorphosed version of this phyllite, and it's that black rock they mine at Mount Cootha. And it's hard, and you'll see it in the video as we find one of the contact zones, so it should be pretty cool. And of course we've got to have my favourite map, the LiDAR, and just to make it interesting, I suppose we'll draw the creek in, because you know it's valleys there. As you can see, it runs. It doesn't actually climb that much. You'll see in the topo in a minute. This creek doesn't climb a lot in its early phases. It drops very little, but when it starts to get to about here, it really starts to lay on some altitude. And when you're walking it, you can see that its sides get steeper. As you can see on the LiDAR there, it crosses the freeway, then it runs up towards the Mount Cootha Road. Just as easy to access it from the Mount Cootha Road actually. Up there, there is a track that runs through there. Here's the topo. Not much to see on the topo this time because it really doesn't gain much in altitude. So yeah, anyway, it's a pretty map though. The colours are nice. Anyway, let's go on and have a look at the history of this area, of this creek in particular, its utilisation. That's very interesting. Well, as this video is about the history of Toowong Creek, and there aren't a lot of photos. This is Burns Road, looking towards the church where Ziggy used to be, from about 1914. This one is Toowong Creek. It's one of the few images. You saw it before. This is a lady in a canoe sitting on Toowong Creek in the tidal region with the Chinese garden behind it. And that's of the 1890s, so it's a fairly old photo. This is what Patterson Sawmills looks like back in the early 1900s. This thing's burnt down about 3 times, and this was, I think, its second incarnation before it burnt down yet again. Apparently sawmills running on steam engines can be a bit burny. The high street shops here in Toowong. Yeah, not much has changed really. No, that's not true. It's a lovely place nowadays. And I thought we'd go up to Taringa, because that's where Ziggy is nowadays, but they're the Taringa high street shops. You can certainly see the road, but yeah, that has changed substantially, obviously, as the whole place has. And this last photo I'm going to give you is just for shits and giggles, really. This is standing on Toowong, looking across West End in St Lucia in 1898. There is nothing. Look at West End. It's just a paddock, so St Lucia. But anyway, the river's still the same. I think that's where a place called Edgewater is now. Vignev Vilcek, aka Tim Jenkins, aka Ziggy the Bagman. He's really a legend in the inner Brisbane suburb of Taringa and Toowong. Ziggy objects to being labelled as homeless. He chooses to live in a park under bags. He doesn't beg for food, clothing or money. He's pretty cool. He was in Toowong for a long time. Tried to get moved on by a few mayors and found out he wasn't breaking any laws. He moved from Toowong down to Oakman Park, which we'll see in the video, because some people were being not so good to him at Toowong. And then he, unfortunately down at Oakman Park, he got flooded. So then he moved up to where he is now, on a traffic island in front of Hungry Jack's up in Taringa. Doesn't do any harm, just don't get downwind top too much. But apart from that, he's a legend now, and that's Ziggy the Toowong Bagman, or the Taringa Bagman, as he is today. Okay folks, here we go. We're going to fly down Queen Street because we can. Look how we don't hit that building. No, we missed it. Of course we missed it. If we'd hit it, I'd have done it again. There goes Stefan's Sky Needle. Just flying over West End here, what is now the desert of West End. And there's the mouth of Toowong Creek just down there. We've seen that in the video by now, and there's some flats down there. And we're just coming over Perrin Park here, about to turn towards, we're over the bed of the creek now, the new creek anyway. Coming along, here's the old creek used to come up and meet here. It goes under these flats, of course, as we saw in the video. It goes a little channel there, it goes under Milton Road and the railway line, along the side of Oakman Park here, where the old Ziggy used to live. And it goes along through those trees, heads over under Minskin Street, which is that street you can see, and along beside the college there, the Advanced Maths and Technology College. You can see the trees winding through here, and we're just following it up. There's the freeway. You see me walk along that in the video a little bit. It crosses under the freeway here through a pipe, comes up on the other side, runs up here. You can just see the greening there of the two valleys. The one to the right there is probably Toowong Creek, but well, folks, this is the QASMT Technology Campus, built in Toowong. Awesome school, great idea, wonderful place for kids to grow and learn. This is the site it was built on. This is the site of an old Queensland homestead, right next to the Vera Street Organic Community Gardens. An amazing place. It was a Chinese garden at one stage, I believe. This is what it looked like in the 1950s. From Sedan Street you went in, and those two trees there are 300-year-old Aboriginal scar trees. They are also protected under law. This is an endangered species, the tusk frog, a beautiful little guy, doesn't live in many places, and this creek is one of the places he lives, and this particular bit of the creek he lived in. And this is the powerful owl, another very endangered species who lives in this area. Now, when you start constructing this stuff, there's somebody's job to protect these creatures, and this person's name is Leanne Enoch, who was the Environmental Minister at the time, and there was another person that would be the Education Minister, Grace. Both of these people were charged with looking after these creatures.
If you can't trust the governments of the world, then who can you trust?
And they failed. They failed miserably, and they failed deliberately. This is the sort of shenanigans they got up to. This is the silt running into the drain, running into the creek that they were supposed to control. They were warned it wasn't being controlled, and they did nothing. And this is what happened to the creek, and it put industrial silt. This is not just runoff. Remember, these creeks run from shale. They don't look like this. And this is what the creek looked like after that. And of course, this deoxygenates the water. It ruins the environment for these creatures. And of course, what happens?
Great Scott!
Well, your frogs all end up in jars of formalin, like this. Now, 20 to 40 frogs were found dead. Now, this is a very small genome. To take these many creatures out doesn't sound like much, but they're protected. Who's going to protect them? Well, these people tried.
Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
They had protests. They tried to stop them. They even stood in front of the construction people. And how did the government, Grace and Miss Enoch, respond? They sent in the coppers to get rid of them. Because, of course, this is a state government project. Now, why would the state government want to build what is essentially a private school? You don't get in here for free. In the western suburbs, in the middle of an endangered species location. Why? Well, it's all about the ching-ching. They want some money, 17 grand a year to send your kid here. If you're from overseas, nearly that much if you're an Aussie. Now, I got no problem with this. It's a great idea. But you'd have to wonder if the son of a single mother on a disability pension at Anala, who was really bright and had the aptitude, if he would ever get to go to this school. But then again, he might go on to become Prime Minister. Well, here we are at the mouth of Toowong Creek. You can see the structure that's been left over from that jetty that used to be here. And here it is, it's all been culverted. Just take note, other creeks. This is what we do to you if we don't like you. we turn you into a concrete canyon. Now, I've been here when this is in flood, and the water comes down there like a freight train. I know you've heard me use that cliche a lot, but it's true. And this is up where, a little further up, looking back down to where we just were. See those 2 tanks there, those 3 tanks? There were 3 tanks like this on this side as well, but the flood whipped them off. They're somewhere out in Moreton Bay now. I was talking to the lady. Anyway, this is where it goes under Brisbane Street. 6 big pipes, and believe me, when they're flowing, they really do flow. It comes across the road eventually anyway. This is a kumquat tree in memory of a lady I used to know there called Betty. She planted it. She's no longer with us, unfortunately, but the tree is, so she lives on. There's another view of the looking upstream towards St Lucia, across to West End on the other side there, and looking back up down the Milton Reach there. It's a beautiful part of the river, it really is. So anyway, let's go back to the onboard mic and get some moving commentary.
Hey GeoNerds, here we are this morning on the banks of Toowong Creek. And what we're doing is we're going to walk this right from its source, which you will have just seen a few minutes ago, right up to its, sorry, not its source, from its junction with the Brisbane River, right up to its source, which is right near the Mount Cootha restaurant actually. Bit of fun today. So stick with me, try not to make it too boring. And I'm going to spin you around and show you something here, which is pretty cool. So, that's the SES depot and council depot down there. And we're going to go over and look at the old, what the original creek was, but like all these Brisbane creeks, this thing's been mutilated. And across the road there is about 6 pipes that go under the road. This is, this road changes its name a lot. I think it's Brisbane Street here. It's on the border of Toowong and St Lucia, and it comes over to this structure here, which I think is a riverine flood back diverter. It's got a big electrical cabinet on it over there, and then the pipes go under here. They go under the SES depot and the council depot and come out on the other side, and we'll see those in a minute. But before that, we're going to go and have a look at the original creek, which is still here. So the original creek came across the road here, and you'll see the I'll put some images up of that. We have quite a lot of maps and photography of that. Came around, hooked around here through the base of this depot, then went back, and we'll go and have a look over there at the what is the remains of that scar. There's a council depot here. The council do all the things that council do for this area. Do an amazing job, I might add. But it's been built in the bed of the old Toowong Creek, and here's the bed here. They just ran this dam through here to stop it, and yeah, you can see she's now just a bit of a swamp. It runs along up towards the service station there, which is now destroyed because of the recent floods. We'll get its we'll pick up its course just there again. Here we are behind the Shell Servo. Sorry about the traffic noise that you get with live audio. And here's the creek bed emerging from where we just saw it before. And here it is coming down. You can see the scar. It actually been filled in. They filled it in quite substantially. But you can see by the ages of some of the trees in that bed, it's been filled in also for quite some time. Go and have a look at the diverter, the structure where the diversion pipes come out, and what they now call Toowong Creek, which is actually the Toowong Drain. And I'll show you where the old bed is. You can see by the way this path dips down here. There's the original creek bed running into there. And we'll have a look at the structure in there in a minute. We're about to go under a flying fox colony. If you watch my Nogwa Creek video, you know that's going to be a bit noisy, but what the hell. They were here first. Well folks, here we are, as you can probably hear from the audio, a little closer to the flying fox colony. Here we are on the other side of the drains as they emerge into what's now called Perrin Park. There's a few things that interest me here. It's the same number of pipes. The flow diverter structure will be symmetrical all the way through. I just talked to a lovely lady before that told me that her next door neighbour knew the original Perrin sisters that owned all of this. We'll be doing some research on that. But something that's really perplexed me is, why is this here? This is a concrete ramp that drives down into the creek from the park. Why do we need a concrete ramp? Maybe we have to drive machinery. It hasn't been used for a while. Look at the size of that tree. Anyway, Just a little brim down in there, rolling around, chasing something. Anyway, as you can see by the mangrove roots coming into here, this is being recolonised, and I'll bet if you dropped a crab pot in here on a big tide, you'd find mud crabs in here. Not sure I'd eat them, but you'd certainly find them. Onward. Well, this is now Perrin Park. Now, Perrin Park is named after the Perrin sisters, as I just found out a little while ago. This floods really badly here, and often it's designed to spool up the water so it can be let out into the Brisbane River carefully, and it does its job. This would have been, well, you can probably see the marks on the trees, 2.2 metres deep here, at least 8 feet deep a couple of weeks ago. And here's the creek. Well, it's not the creek, it's the drain. Here's the drain coming down here. It's just a dead straight line, no imagination whatsoever. You'll see that on the map. I'll put a map up in a few minutes. So if you look carefully, you can see the scar of that creek running through that field already. And I'll, again, with the oldie photographs, we'll be able to see it even better. The creek runs right down the side there in a dead straight line. Curves around here in a radius that had to be drawn by a set of compasses on a map. Nice little path here over to the dog park, which is destroyed by the floods again. And yeah, pretty boring down here actually. We'll get going. Yeah, I know it's not much to look at here, guys, but it's just what they do when they drain a creek and turn it into a drain. Dead straight line. As you can imagine, the water comes down here like a freight train. Nothing to slow it down, nothing to hold it back. Hits that corner there, blows around the corner, and destroys all the stuff it usually destroyed, including one Shell service station. There's a dude over there learning to fly a drone, and he's actually standing in the old creek bed. You see it came around there, went over towards the edge there, came back around. 3 nice big fig trees here which are in the creek bed, so they are not that old. And then it came up and it went in actually right where it does now. And the reason it did that is because all that high country over there is good old bunyiphyllite. I haven't talked a lot about the geology here because we're standing on gravel and everything else you see is phyllite. It is that simple. That'll change a little in the future, further up the creek, but here, that's all. Here we have Toowong Creek, just at the top of Perrin Park. I think we've solved the problem of the concrete ramp. Because here we have a garbage screen, great bit of gear, keeps the plastic bottles and the garbage that we throw into the river upstream, gets flushed into the river from getting into the waterways. Here's the 2 big concrete creek culverts that are Toowong Creek now. They run under a set of units, which I'll show you in a second. And here is exactly the same structure. A concrete ramp with a gate on it, and I'd say that second drive a bobcat down there, or drive a vehicle down there and clear that out. And those units there have this creek running under it. Well, usually, but when the creek needs a little more space, it runs through them. We'll have a look at that. My least favourite tree in the Australian countryside, the African tulip, whole row of them here, killing all the native bees. Irresponsible landowners, but anyway, they're ignorant. They can't know what they don't know. They need to watch my video on it. And the reason we're here, this is Alpha Street, I might have already said that. This flooded to about 1.5 meters deep. It went about halfway up the garage doors on that set of flats over there. All these cars would have been destroyed. And yeah, it's a very low point. I wonder why. Because they moved the creek. We'll have a look at the map of this in a few minutes again. I'll bring it up, put a ring around it. But anyway, let's see where they moved the creek to. And when I say it goes under these units, I mean it. This is some of the dumbest civil engineering I have ever seen. That is someone's driveway built on piles over a creek. Over a creek. I don't know how you get to do that. That is known to flood like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, we'll have a look at this from the other side. I just wanted to see the structure. Those piles go back in, oh, it looks like about 20-30 feet back in underneath there. And they're all eroding out, by the way, because, gee, I wonder why. Anyway, I'll get a photo of this from the driveway. Now here's Toowong Creek, looking absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Comes down here. I'm standing on that driveway I showed you before, and that's what it goes under when it goes under those apartments. Interesting, round pipes on this end, square pipes on the other end. Somewhere in the middle is a manifold where these meet. Be an interesting place in the flood. And of course there's the bedrock, a good old bunya phyllite. Unusually coloured here, but it's definitely got the phyllite striations in it. We're starting to get to a point where it will start to get cooked, but not yet. It's a little closer to Mount Cooper. Anyway, let's give you a little bit more of this creek. You just never get used to the sound of that running water, do you? A little bit further up Toowong Creek, just where it goes under what is Moggle Road. There's a nice little pool there. You can see the culverts going under the railway embankment. Big pipe, of course, carrying services. And all the rock here, I've had a good look at the rock here in this bar. It's all garbage. It's all bits of fill they brought in to make the railway embankment that's washed out. So, but we get some good rock on the other side. We'll look at that. Here we are, folks. Here we are, folks, riveted iron structure. This is the main line to Ipswich. This is a really old bridge. It's been here a very long time. And as you can see, it would be 100 years old easily, riveted iron. Same sort of structure as the Story Bridge, etc. Probably bits left over. Here's the other side of the road, folks, on the railway line, the culvert's coming through. Again, a beautiful little clear creek over here, because we're starting to get into bedrock. Not where Fred and Barney lived, but you know, the other kind of bedrock. It's a cool little creek here, fairly unremarkable. I won't shoot too much of it, purely because it's got a whole boat of debris in it, pushed in by the school there, little blue blood school, pushing all its debris, concrete crap into the creek. And leaving it there, just tiles and bricks and whatever. Anyway, we'll get something more interesting a little further up. Here we are at the top end of Oakman Park, still behind the Brisbane Boys College, BBC. Creek's a little more visible here than it was when I was here last, because the floods have stripped all of that tanner and torn it apart, which is pretty good. But it's coming back with a vengeance. Only 3 weeks ago and this stuff's grown afoot, so. We're just coming up to Minskin Street, a fairly well-known and old street in Brisbane, surveyed a long time ago. So we will, we're going to lose the creek here for a few minutes because it wanders off into private property. But we'll catch it on the other side. Now, this is the culverted ford of, which is what it is, of Minskin Street. Now there are 3 culverts there. That's really old, by the way. That's cast concrete, so that's 1920s sort of stuff. And those pipes weren't just randomly chosen. They calculated the flow and thought we're going to need 3, or 4, or 5, or 2. However, when it exceeds that flow, that structure becomes a dam, and it pushes the water up on the other side and floods all the properties behind it. So in normal flow it's fantastic, as you can see now. In a moderate flood it's fantastic, but in a real freight train roarer, and believe me, all of the country to the upstream side of this is pure Brisbane phyllite. We've just come off some gravel plains and gravel areas. That's over now. When it rains up here, every drop of it just ends up in the creek very quickly, and it starts roaring down here. And yeah, it doesn't always end well for the people who live on the other side of this. Anyway, we'll have a look at the other side, but we can't go too far. We've got to walk around a hill a bit to get to the other side. Here we are, folks, on the upstream side of the Minskin Street crossing. And yeah, it's a beautiful looking creek again. Very rainforesty. Some people there that obviously don't like to hear the floods coming. And it looks like we've got better access now. I'm going to go for a walk, see what we can do. We might not have to walk around this. So there we go. This is the grounds of the Queensland Academy. It's a school here for, I don't know, smarty pantsers. Obviously people that were smarter than T-Rocks. And it's a fantastic facility. Right in the middle of Brisbane, easy to get to. I don't know, cheaper version of Brisbane Boys College. I don't know, T-Rocks doesn't understand this stuff. Anyway, we'll walk as far as we can because it follows the creek. We own the creek. Obviously must teach geology here because they've got a geology field section here in their garden. This is a piece of Enoggera granite. Maybe not actually, that could actually be granodiorite. We'll have to look at that. There's a piece of sandstone, another piece of granite. Here's one of those Halidon hay bale size sandstone building blocks, which I notice are all over this place. Anyway, we'll keep going. So Toowong Creek just follows this footy field around hockey field, probably both, around the other side there, and we'll walk that in a minute, but I've just noticed some cliffs, and these cliffs don't look natural. Could be another quarry. Let's go and have a look. So here's this cliff I saw, and as I thought, it's a beautiful big exposure of bunya phyllite, and it's very strange. It doesn't seem to have any tool marks on it, but it looks old too, so this could have been another structure that's been reused. And also I've just noticed a really nice looking Brazilian cherry growing here, and I love these fruit, and they're ripe too. Hang on a couple of secs, I'll get us some. Here's some more of that phyllite exposure. It's not really much to look at, pretty standard phyllite. Look at those bromeliads hanging onto it there. They are amazing plants. Tell you what, it'd deter anyone from ever climbing it. Well folks, this is Toowong Creek, flowing crystal clear and free up behind the Advanced Academy School. Little causeway here, which is quite nice, a little ford, which I'm standing on. You can see the floods have caused quite a bit of damage here, but up here they're not quite as violent because we're a lot closer to the source of the river, creek. And here it is going away. And it looks original. The little meander there, if people come in with backhoes and dig that out, that all goes away. But none of these trees are particularly old. If you look at all of these trees on the bank, apart from one or two big river gums, pretty much the same age. So, but there's a couple of really biggies down there, and there's one just here which is probably over 100 years old, so I would say this might be the original creek bed, which I'm pretty happy with. strangle fig over there. Starting to develop buttress roots. That's actually going to be a Moreton Bay fig, a very big one by the look of it. Goes up forever. And unfortunately embedded in this is several of my favourite trees to hate, African tulips. But anyway, one day we'll do something about that. Onwards and upwards. Side, a little waterfall here. Starting to see quartz intrusions, quite large quartz intrusions in this fill-up, which is what you'd expect getting closer to Mount Cootha. Move over here a bit. Here's the other side of this. It's a beautiful part of the creek here. It really is. Looks healthy, looks clean. There it is, flowing up towards its source. We're going to meet it again. We have to dodge around a bit of private property here, and we'll meet it again on the other side. So folks, we have Toowong Creek coming beautifully along its little valley, and then it hits concrete. It's culverted. And that's the culverts there. So we will find out where they come out. I know where they come out, of course. Because what you needed to build, of course, instead of this beautiful piece of nature, you needed what you needed was, of course, a bowls club, because you know bowls club's is best. And the creek runs down that valley under the bowls club, and it releases from its culverts just on the other side of that street there. We're going to do that now. Folks, here we have a young bunya pine. When I say young, it's probably only 20 years old. And let me tell you, you heard me say the other week about organic barbed wire. Well, let me tell you, this is what these things look like. And those things are sharpy pointy. You can see those little tips, and those little tips are really sharp. So yeah, Aboriginal person that climbed this tree and got a bunya nut, more power to him, because it's seriously hard work. Here we are folks, over on the corner of Orchard Street and Toowong Street at Toowong, and we're about to see an interesting structure. Is that buy one get one free? Not sure. Anyway, over the road there you'll see the beginnings of the creek again. Let's go over and check her out. There's the creek. Where it goes into its culverts, just over there, disappears and pops up on the other side of the bowls club. Well folks, here we are, the back streets of Toowong, heading to the steep part of Toowong Creek. It's cut right down to bedrock now. Everywhere we go we see shale exposures, which is what we'd expect. So yeah, it's a lovely part. Up here we're going to see some of the old gold mines that I found. Let's see if I can show you those. More in a bit. Beautiful little bridge in the back streets of Toowong, over Toowong Creek. And you know, when you're walking around, you never know what you're standing on. That is a seriously big pipe. And that is a seriously cute little bridge. This is just behind Orchard Street in Toowong. It's a really nice place. And of course, it's a really nice place because it's over a really nice creek. And we've got a junction here. There's two creeks join right here. There we go, a junction of two rivers. The creeks are always important to native people because they just were. And Toowong Creek is the one going off to our right, and the other one I don't know the name of, but we'll find it if it's named. A lot of these little ones don't get names. Anyway, we'll continue on up there, I think. Look at you, aren't you pretty? Give me an ukukaka. No, you're ignoring me, aren't you? Here we are, folks. This is Toowong Creek. We're at the bottom end of Broseley Street at Toowong. You can park your car here and walk through here. It's absolutely beautiful. I walked here today because, you know, that's what I do. This beautiful forest, regenerating naturally. Maybe not so naturally. I think some people are in there helping it, but that's a good thing. But the real star of the show here is this guy. This is a juvenile bunya pine. And to think, when I'm long dead and gone, that thing is going to be 80 to 100 feet high. It makes me feel good. I'm not sure why, but it does. Anyway, let's have a look at this creek. Somebody's obviously done a good job of regeneration here. The right plants, right place. This is beautiful. Here we are, folks, on one of the trails. I just thought I'd show you the ground here. It's absolutely littered with bugged quartz. This is quartz that's had the pyrites leached out of it, and it's just fallen apart. Everything here is, and if you walk off into the bush here, it's just like snow. And of course, rocks don't fall uphill. So where did it come from? The answer is up there. And on the top of that ridge, we might have a look on the way back, on the top of that ridge, there's some big quartz veins in the phyllite that have been eroding out, and they've just been mass wasting down the hill, and they just keep going. And there's also some old gold scratchings up there, so we'll have a look at that on the way back probably. But we've got to get to this, if you can hear in the background, that's the freeway that cuts through this. We've got to get to there to get to Toowong Creek, then we've got to walk around to the other side. So we'll get moving. We're looking down into the valley of Toowong Creek there, and we're about to come across our first obstacle. And I'm not a sook when it comes to bushwalking, but this is a substantial obstacle. It's called the Western Freeway. And Toowong Creek's valley is that one over there. So let's see what we can do. What we're starting to see here now, folks, is outcroppings of this. And this is Brisbane schist. This is metamorphosed shale, the bunya phyllite that's been cooked by contact with the Enogra granites, and it's been metamorphosed into a hornblende, or hornfeld, sorry, not hornblende, a hornfeld, and it's hard. This shit rings. If you hit it with a hammer, it will ring. It's hard, it's strong, and it's good stuff. And it's everywhere here. You'll see it in the creek bed in a minute when we get down there as well, because the creek is cut down into it here. We're right on the zone, the edge of the metamorphic zone. Over in Toowong, no. Back here, yes. And even down towards Anzac Park, which we'll go to in a minute, there's some little rhyolite dikes down there, which they only found when they started digging the Anzac Tunnel. So we'll have a look at that too. Anyway, onwards. Here's Toowong Creek, folk, as it approaches the freeway. Very steep, 20 metre deep bed, and it's quite a bit of man-made disruption on this side, but the other side's steep too. No one's messed with that. We'll have a look at that in a minute, and we'll see where it goes through the freeway. Then we're going to walk about 3 kilometres around to the other side. Here's the bed of the creek coming up towards a little ford before the freeway, but what we've got here is a bit of iron leaching in the creek. Now, I'm not saying this isn't some junk that's been dumped in the creek by man, but I've seen this before in places where there's just a lot of pyrites in the rock, and as you saw that quartz before, that was all over the place, and it's all around here as well. A lot of the pyrites that leaches out of that quartz is iron pyrites, and it ends up in the water. I'm told there's a bacteria that munches it up. I don't know much about that. There's the creek going up there. We'll go and check it out in a few seconds. I know, considering the beautiful creek that we've been following, it's a fairly unceremonial way for it to cross the freeway, but there it is. Let me just get under that little for you. There it is. Yuck. However, the star here is, look at this red gum. This red gum is 40, 50 years old, and look what it's sitting on top of. Big pieces of bunya phyllite, and I don't know that they are there completely being dumped there. I think they've come out of the side of this hill. They're big pieces of phyllite. Oh well, phyllite, no. This is schist, it's been cooked. It's dark. Anyway, a couple more things there I'll look at, then we'll head off and get around the other side, see what the other side of this pipe looks like. Here's a view of the freeway you don't get too often, folks. Western Freeway, about halfway along. Nice big cutting over there, duplex cutting right through the shale, and it is shale here. You kick it with your boot. Here's the speed signs and all the structures that go with it. There you go. Not much video.
Hey gang, T-Rox from the future here. During the edit, I actually did shoot some video on the other side of the freeway, but frankly this is getting way too long. It's going to be over an hour if I put all that in there. So the creek is a beautiful little creek, very similar to what you've just seen. Goes up the side of Mount Cootha, frankly nearly right up to the road. So I may use that another time. We may do a separate video, but on this one I'll spare you it, and I'll cut this one short here. Back to our normal programming.
What I mean about the surprise geology around here, that's all shale, we know that, you can see that. But that's not. That's some hard stuff. It's not tuff, I think it's rhyolite. Anyway, I'll take a piece of it home, we'll stick it under the microscope. Well, you hear me prattle on about the contact zone between the bunya phyllite and the Mount Cootha schist and the hornblends. There is no better illustration than right here. That is Mount Cootha schist, hornblende. That is bunya phyllite. And there is the contact zone. Schist on the bottom, phyllite on the top over a period of about 6 inches, and you can see the transitional rocks in the middle. Now this exposure runs right along here, and that phyllite was already there, and it has been cooked from underneath by the heat from the Niagara granites. And the stuff on top here has also been transformed, that dark colour. It's the same stuff I saw over at Ashgrove, near Waterworks Road in that quarry. Dark, but you could still see the striations in it and the quartz veining. It's just been transformed. Absolutely amazing. What a great, I'm glad I walked this way. I knew it didn't come this way. You could see it coming up out of the ground in an anticline. This footpath is flat. and put on over here by a lycra boy. This footpath is flat, and as you can see, that goes along, it comes up in a bow. That's an anticline, it's been bent, twisted, whatever over the years. And you can see the contact zone comes back down here and it just dives back into the ground. So there's just a big bubble of it here. Well, there you go. An interesting place, right on the side of the freeway, about 400 metres from Anzac Park.
Hey Geo Nerds, that's your lot for this week again. The Toowong Creek and the school and the dead frogs and the owl and the pussycat. Was there a pussycat? Maybe there wasn't. But look, it was a great story, and I had to curb a lot of it. A, the video was getting too long, and B, I got really upset at those Environmental Minister and the Education Minister. We pay those people a crap ton of money to do their job, and their job is to protect endangered species, not to build elitist schools to tap into blue blood ching ching in the western suburbs. You'd have to ask, if they built that school at Inala or Zulmia, would it be any less effective? Anyway, I digress. Next week might not be next week, it's a long creek. We're going to be doing Kedron Brook, Toombul, right through to Ferny Grove, as far as we can go. It's going to be an awesome thing. The weather's nice and cool now. Should have knocked that over in a couple of days. And thank you to all the new subscribers. It really means a lot. And if you've got any friends you think would like these shows, get rid of them. They're obviously idiots. But before you do, tell them about the show. Anyway, while I was walking through there, those Vera Street community gardens are awesome. You should check them out. But I was talking to a bloke there, and he was tending this field of lettuce, and I said, I heard the other day that Elon Musk, he doesn't like iceberg lettuce. Apparently he's more of a rocket man.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this stuff, and hey, you made it this far, please help us to poke the algorithm and smash that like button like it's Space 1999. And if you want to see more, subscribe and share this with, say, 1,000 of your closest friends. And let's see just how far that little algorithm can go before its CPU explodes. Copy you later.